In the old, a few years ago, we had a seeding system, a ranking system that was determined by points. Uh, the system now is money orientated, so that's how it works.
Mhm.
And I mean, is that fair on lower ranked players? Is that really measuring their ability? Is that really rewarding them in some regards as well on the current ranking system? I think we both agree that we don't feel that it is. You
No.
know, now listen, but we're going to get the view of three guys here, guys. We've got some. We're going to be listening to a bit of feedback off Stuart Bingham, Mark Davis, and I think Chris will be joining us, give us his feedback as well.
Yeah.
So, what are your feelings on this one, Mike?
Well, I think it's very difficult at the minute or it has been up to the introduction of the 20,000 per year basic pay, if you like. But up till then, I think Ronnie was quite right in saying, it's not something he would push his kids into, because it's a kind of a really difficult way to make a living. But I think there's maybe more to a snooker player's income than just prize money. They do get a bit of sponsorship to help with various things. They get any decent players, I suppose, get exhibitions. They get a bit of that. So there's other ways. It's not a great career money wise. It's not like football or golf or tennis or anything like that. But because despite what snooker fans think, it's a minority sport, isn't it? I know it's on telly quite a lot. It's on telly quite a lot more than some of the bigger sports, if you like, some of the more popular sports. But I don't think it's fair when a player qualifies to get onto tour that he should be faced with anyone, if you like. Most of these things are like flat draws where they just get the top 32 is spread out so they don't hit each other, if you like. So they're more likely to play one of them than they are one of their peers, if you like, because the draw, it's wrong. It should be a tiered draw, I think, and it should be where they're in bands, if you like, and that band plays, and the best ones move up, and the best ones move up, and they can do that. That's not an issue, but you couldn't do it with the current system of the money ranking points thing. It's just too top heavy. I would go. I've never worked it out properly, but I would go more with a couple of points or something for entering. So it just encourages players to enter anyway. So you get a couple of points just for entering. And maybe just one idea that is just a point per frame won. So say if you get through and you play a decent player, you've won a couple of games, and you get a bit of reward. So you get beat, best of 7, you get beat 4-3 by a decent player. You're not just like kicked out and that's it. You've got at least 3 points and maybe a couple of points for entry. So you've got points, but the 2-year thing is too. I don't understand. The 2-year ranking points. I don't know. Just like football leagues start every season, you start off from 0. Okay, so you'd seed the players based on last year's performance, which basically, like football does, you stay in whatever division you're in. You've been promoted or relegated, and you're in that division, if you like, for the next season. So these players, they would start off. All the new ones would start off all the same. They'd all be in the bottom 32. The bottom 32, they're all on 0 points, playing the next 32 up, playing against them. So you got the bottom 32 drawn against the next 32 and work their way up like that. And the best players from last season are in the top 32 and they come in last. Some say that's protection, but it's not protection. I would think some of them don't want to be in that, because whoever they get to play has already got a few points. And if they don't play, if they decide that they're not playing, then they're starting getting way behind. And the next tournament, it's easy to seed based on the last one rather than 2 years' performance, just base it on the last one. So the top 32 could well drop out if they don't perform or they don't even enter. The money side is obviously different, you know, that's got to be something different. But as far as the points go, every tournament can start off with the seeding from the previous tournament. They can do it instantly. I know some like to know if they've been drawn or, you know, wherever they've been drawn, but you know, just to give them a couple of days off. Don't go from like playing on a Sunday to playing on a Monday. I wouldn't do that. I would do it, you know, just a bit more structured and a bit more thought about the players, you know, the people who are involved and everything like that. Just, you know, just be a bit more sympathetic towards them. Some of these players, they're going more or less from playing in a decent event, you know, quarterfinals, semi-finals, final, you know, they're struggling over the weekend to get through. Next thing they know, on a Monday or a Tuesday morning or a evening, they're playing in some sports hall in a little cubicle with nobody watching. And you think that's not professional sport, and that's where I wouldn't have it. I don't think it's right it's not something that kids, you know, should be aiming at. I don't think. I wouldn't have it at all. I think there's much better ways than the current system.
So we've got two areas here where there could be improvements. Perhaps a point system that would measure a player's ability more, reward a player a lot better, and perhaps a rethink on the tiering system.
Yeah.
As you just explained, it makes an awful lot of sense to me. In fact, it makes sense to a lot of other people as well, particularly on the higher end of the tour, you know. So maybe what we'll do at this point, let's just listen to what Mark Davis had to say about this, actually. Okay. We'll see if we can have a little listen, see what he said about this. Let's see if we can bring him in here, actually. It's funny, you know, don't have to bring him on live because he gives you such a headache, doesn't he? Honestly, seriously. You know.
No, it's points.
System fair. So you're with,
well. Look. I think the tier system is the best system. The system that was in place the year Barry came in and changed it, I think was the best system I've ever played under. Yeah. It was the cut-offs. It was a tiered system with 32, 48, all in their brackets, and there was cut-off points where you moved in and out. Everyone was guaranteed money. I think it's better. I certainly think it's better for the new players. I mean, they're coming in now. They could draw a top 16 player every single tournament, apart from the UK and the world, because that's a tiered system. You know, how are you supposed to develop as a player when you're getting those kind of draws? You can't. Everybody's got to develop. You can't buy that. You have to learn your trade. You have to develop your game. In the first round, you're not. It's going to be demoralising. You have a year of that, you're demoralised. And the only reason you wouldn't have a year of that is complete pot luck on the draws. Whether you get them or you don't get them. It's unlikely you'll get them in every tournament, but other people disagree, but I think the tier system is much better. I think and if you do get up in the rankings, what's wrong with being rewarded and starting later on the tournament or being able to the venue? That's a reward for getting there, surely. And let's be honest, are the 16 going to be any different no matter what system you play? I don't think so. You might take one or two players, might be in there and out there. You could argue maybe Maguire and Ali, maybe if they were in there and two were out, you wouldn't argue with it. But in general, the 16 are going to be the 16 whatever system you play. So, and the people who, for the tiered system, their argument is they're always protected. Well, it doesn't matter if they're protected or not. It's still going to be there no matter what system you have because they're the best players. Simple as that. So I just think for the new players, the tier system is better. Absolutely, developing as a player, learning your trade and learning the experience and obviously before the money situation come in, earning some money as well. I mean, that's not so much this year because they're guaranteed the 20, but before that it was an issue. And definitely a point system because we had a meeting a few months ago and Joe came out with some of them. When he got to a final of a tournament, he got, I don't know what he got, 30 grand or something, 40 grand. And then 2 years later, that money came off. And then the guy who got to the final with the same tournament, because the money had gone up, he got like 50 or whatever it was. I don't know the exact figures at the moment, but he basically got 20 or 20, 25 grand more than Joe did for getting to the exact same round. How can that be fair? It's ridiculous.
It's not a
So
fair
that's why the
system.
money list doesn't work when the money keeps going up, because you're gonna it's so top heavy. I think it's definitely a pre-and-point system. And
So what way, Mark? What way would you have it? I mean, if you were making a decision on this with the current 128 format, the top 32 pretty much know they're going to get somebody ranked 75 and above. Yeah. What way would you change that?
what do you mean 75? What money wise?
Well, if you're a top 32 ranked player, you pretty much know you're going to be drawing someone 75 and below. So that's good for the.
Well, they can draw 33, couldn't they?
Pros.
No, they
right?
can draw 33.
Mm-hmm.
The 32 just can't play each other.
Yeah.
So they could draw 33. So I mean, it is what it is. I mean, like I say, if it was up to me, I think the tier system is the best system.
Do you?
Personally, so they wouldn't play each other in the first round. But look, I mean, if it's good enough for the World Championships, the biggest tournament in the world, and that's never changed. Even when Barry came in and changed the whole lot, that never changed that tournament. The earlier rounds have changed. They've been changed through when I was on the commission. We managed to change a couple of things and have it a little bit better tiered. I still don't think it's 17 should be playing one game in my opinion. He's still got to play two. So it's still not quite right, but it's better than what it was. But that's never changed. That's always been a tiered system. So it was good enough for that. Why aren't all the others the same? Don't really get it, personally.
So,
and now the UK is as well. The second biggest tournament is as well. So they're gradually kind of going back to it anyway, really. But, I think it should all be. That's my opinion. Other people disagree. I know I do. Yeah, but saying it's protection and all that. Well, I'm like I say, protection's all very well. But, I mean, I don't care what system you have. Those 16, give or take maybe one or two players, are going to be there. No matter what system you have, as far as I'm concerned.
That's right. That's true.
They're there for a reason.
Well, do you know I say throw everybody in the hat? Throw everybody in the hat.
Yeah, well.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, I'm telling you. Pete Davis.
Seem to have a random draw.
I don't know. You can't get rid of them, can you?
No, what you just said there about throwing everybody in the hat, it's like what they do. Is it the British Open now? They do it FA Cup style after every round and all that.
But the thing is that
it's not good, is it? It doesn't work. It works for maybe one, two.
Take that off there. So obviously, Mark feels like a lot of other top professionals do, Mike, on this one. I will listen to Stuart Bigham very shortly and what he had to say, very similar. But what do you think about the feedback there from Mark?
Well, I think it's perfectly right, because he mentioned, obviously, like we said, about the 20k making a big difference. And always there's an argument, isn't there, about the 128 players in the tournament. We're talking about these kind of tournaments, obviously not the ones for the Masters and the Players Championship, Tour Championship. We're talking about the bog standard ranking events with 120 in the home nations and stuff like that. The home nations used to be everybody at the venue, didn't they? There used to be 128 players at the venue, 8 tables. You could go and watch who you wanted. All the 8, they were all there, and they all did that. But then now they've made it strange. But the qualification thing is too English bias, I think, and the 20k basic has kind of got rid of the argument that they can't afford to go somewhere. There's so many English players because the game is in England, or is the game in England because there's so many English players? It's a bit chicken and egg, isn't it? It's called the World Snooker Tour, and it should be the world, and that's end of. But say you get the German Masters, they've got 20 grand, so they've got more than £1,000 a month to play with. So that's their expenses. So they can go to Germany to play the qualifiers. They might not be able to play in the Tempodrom or however you pronounce it, but they could do like they did at York or they do at Sheffield. They can play in another venue and then go to the actual venue for the final stages. But there's no argument anymore about expenses. And why should these kids have to relocate from China, just to be able to play on the World Snooker Tour? It's wrong. So the money side is great that they've done that. And this is where part of the arguments with people being protected and going through to big events and big venues. If all the ranking events were at the venue, at least in the same city, maybe you don't need to be at the same venue, but they should be, they should be in the same city, whether it's in Berlin or wherever. Even in China, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You take your chances. You shouldn't be biased towards the English like that. So, what Mark's saying there is perfectly right. How do you get to develop if you don't get to develop properly through playing your peers rather than playing, someone will say, oh, you've got to be able to beat Ronnie to make it. No, you don't. You need to be able to beat, the other guys who are just starting off like you to get better, to eventually be able to face people like, the class of 92 and all these lot. You've got to progress. And that's what World Snooker and WPBSA should be putting in, a progressive system, not a fancy done for television system.
Indeed. All right, well, let's listen to see what Stuart had to say about this just last week, actually. Can't remember what I spoke to him. He's such an interesting man, really.
It was recent, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see what he had to say anyway,
Money, it's so top heavy, as you say. I'm not sure about the ranking system. I think it should go back to the tiered system. So players that are coming on, they play people their own level, and then they're fighting their own level. Then they get a bit of confidence, they win a bit of money, and when they do eventually get through to the sort of last 32, last 64, and they're playing us, they've got a bit of confidence, they've won some money, and they've won some matches, so they'll improve that way. So yeah, I think that's more of the situation, not sort of the ranking points or money. I think the tiered system should come back. Like we had a coffee break with World Snooker the other day, and Fergal O'Brien sort of said he's done the qualifying for I think it was like Northern Ireland. He had to go to England in Barnsley or whatever, playing a qualifier, and he's got the winner of John Higgins and whoever in the second round. John Higgins plays on the first day, wins his match. He's got Fergal's got him the next day, so he's had he had his match the day before, so he's all warmed up and prepared and all that. Fergal won his qualifier 5 weeks before, and he might not have had another match since then. So he's under it anyway, playing John Higgins, but then he's sort of like, John's been on the table literally the day before, so they're sort of looking at all the systems of what's best and what's not. And like I say, a lot of people, I think the tiered system would be better. I know a few players was all sort of for it before it changed to the flat draw. But when, like, this is the thing with snooker players, when it suits them, they're all good for it, but they don't look at the bigger picture. They all look at their own sort of stature or their own sort of prize money or whatever. Where I think you should look at what's better for the game. Like you say, you've got these lads that are coming on. They're sort of running into sort of they could play in 5 events and get 5 top 8 players, and like they'd be lucky to win one of them. So they've got no money. Obviously, with this 20 grand, it's obviously a great boost for them. They can sort of, like you say, give up their day job and practice and become a professional snooker player. But like you say, for them to have a chance of winning any of those matches is, like I say, it's near enough a miracle. They're going to play them in the main arena, main table, so everything's against them. So if they go through this tiered system and they're playing people their own, if they don't win a match, then they're obviously not good enough. But then once they sort of get involved in it and they're getting chances after chance, and they start building confidence. And I think that's maybe probably the best way for any sort of newcomer on the tour to be in a tiered system.
Well, Stu, that's very significant feedback there from you, and I'm sure I'm going to get very similar view from other top 16 professionals. You know, and let's hope that maybe this is looked at by the powers that be and maybe reviewed.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, there you go, Mike. Same feedback.
Yeah. It just makes no sense to me not to have the tiered system now. Maybe, you know, there was things before and what Barry Hearn's done is great and all that. We're not talking about back then, we're talking about now. This is what matters, isn't it? And I think the way forward, I mean, if you follow like Twitter, Facebook and stuff like that, you'll see how much interest there is at the beginning of a tournament, and there's not a great lot, and the qualifiers there's hardly any. So, you know, it doesn't matter. You know, get the qualifiers played at the venue with the people, promote the sport. There's many reasons, I think, to keep everybody together and play in a tiered system. Get everybody, you know, playing against each other. Get the better players coming through, playing against the ones who've already got there but can get knocked off. You know, they're not protected for a full season like they used to be. You know, and David said about cut-off points. I would have the cut-off point after every tournament, but sometimes if they can't quite make it that if they can't quite do it that quick, you know, have the cut-off points somewhere else. But I think they've got to make it into more of a professional sport rather than a exhibition sport, if you like.
Well, it's like the guy said. I mean, this changing the tiering back to the tiering system would give the players, the lower ranked players, an opportunity to develop their games.
Yeah.
You know, strengthen their games against similar standard players. You know, not being thrown in the deep end. It just creates changes things completely. You know, and it's pretty obvious to me. It's pretty obvious that things, you know, it needs to be looked at. It needs to be looked at very seriously, and it'd just be very interesting to see what some of the other professionals think. You know, we'll maybe speak to them in due course. You know, I'm just waiting for Chris to join us for a moment.
He'll be watching snooker. Well, Alec Carter's. He was there with Alec Carter before. I saw him in practice room.
Oh, he's probably watching. Yeah, he
just started
I forgot about that. I'm just looking at that now. It's actually live. Yeah, he might join us in a second. We'll see. See if we'll give him a little bit of time to pop on.
Okay.
So let's just switch over to. We're going to talk. We'll talk very briefly about the 6 raids. I think there was something here that was concerning you a little bit in terms of. I love controversy.
Yeah, it's an invitational event, so there's no real strict rules to it. But I've never seen an event before where people play qualifiers, get knocked out, and then because some of the people who were already invited first time have decided they're not going to Thailand, so some of the qualifiers have been asked to go back into it. Now, I don't know what criteria they've used for that, but people, you know, there's been loads of people saying, "No, they should have gone down the Q School order and merit. They should have done this, blah blah blah." But all the amateurs, any amateur could have played in the qualifiers. They couldn't even get enough. Actually, they couldn't actually get enough qualified people. They didn't get 128 wanted to play in the qualifiers. So some of them, you know, they didn't want to play, but now they're a bit aggrieved that other people have got in. And to be honest, I have no idea. It's up to sponsors, I guess. I suppose.
Well,
push. I don't actually agree with giving cards out for the European event, which is on shortly, for the World Snooker Federation one. I don't agree with that. There shouldn't be cards, World Snooker Tour professional cards given to. I don't want to say easy, because there's no way that I could be that good. They're all English, and it's like I say, it's a bit chicken and egg. Is the game based in England because they're all English players, or are they all English players because the game's based in England? You know, if the game was based in Germany, would we see a lot more Europeans in it? You know, they say Germany's really, it's really popular in Germany. They reckon that it's really good in Poland, but they don't get the opportunity. They've not got that same opportunity that the English players have, and they're spoiled for me. Don't want to upset any of the English players, but they're spoiled. I would say that's a good event, though, isn't it? That's a good standard. That they're ex-pros. They've done it through the Q Tour, which has been, it has gone into Europe. They've had a couple of events in Europe, but mostly again in England. But those kind of things. It's hard to have an amateur tour, obviously, all over the world, but you could have national tours all over the world that qualify for an event like the playoffs, the Q Tour playoffs. Don't see why not. And the national associations, the national governing bodies can put these events on and pay for the lads to go. I mean, why should these lads have to pay to come from various countries to play in an event? They should be winning those scholarships, if you like, to these big events. And why not? Like the national governing bodies, but they seem to they want to play for prize money at the event. At the minor events, you want to play for like 100 quid, 50 quid, or whatever. 1,000 quid or whatever. Play for the prize money. Like Wales don't do that. Wales don't give prize money out for their competitions, and that's why they get more support from Welsh snooker, because Welsh snooker are like saying, why should we give you money to give out as prize money? We'll give you money to run your associate, to help with you with the events and everything, but they can pay for people to go to events like to Europe or to World Snooker Federation. Well, World Snooker Federation's obviously independent now. It's you just enter yourselves. It's not through anybody else like that.
No.
That's them are the type of things that I would be looking at doing, making it, again, a progression system where you've got your clubs, you've got your leagues, counties, the best players coming through and working their way up, instead of everybody sitting in the backyard playing on the star table waiting for Q School.
Well, that's the next thing coming up. We got two events at Q School this year.
Well, we don't know what's going to happen there, do we? Because
it looks like two events, doesn't it?
Well, it does at the minute, but if you look at it and you think, obviously, I'm not saying that these guys are going to get thrown out, but it's looking like that there's 10 Chinese players who will get banned. It's looking
that might create just more players from the two events. Or
well,
three.
where are they going to get replacements? They're not going to say, well, we've only got 118 pros this time, and we'll do the 10 from Q School top up. I can't see that. But they'd have to know this before people think about entering, because loads more would enter Q School if they thought, okay, there's like 20 of us going to get top ups. 10 of us going to get extra top ups, and besides the other ones who don't. The pros who don't enter, there's always a few, isn't there? There's always a few, but it doesn't make sense not to have 128 pros. They don't want to have 131. They don't want to have 129. They want to have 128, and it's not that. It can't be that difficult to say, do you want to be a pro? Yeah, right. I want to be a pro. No, you can't. You're not good enough. Simple as, isn't it? So you get 128, and these players, most of them will be playing because most of them will be, especially if you put on a decent points-based ranking system. They'd have to play, or else they'd be dropping down the rankings. So, but loads of people would be at Q School, which a lot of people criticise because they say it's just a cash cow. It's not the right way. It's not a professional sport in that way. They're doing it. There's a lot of things wrong in my opinion. That they're not making it just a straightforward a development through the sport. You look at things like golf, and you've got all these different academies, tennis, and all that, all these different ways of progressing into being a professional. Whereas snooker, you just get thrown in. You just get